there is a satellite that watches our world. And it has been watching us even before our world began. It is an alien satellite that is not of this world, and its construction and its appearance in our skies is the definition of alien. It is called the Black Knight Satellite. It is a name that conjures up mystery, myth, and the unknown. UFO enthusiasts swear by its name, and yet world governments and national space agencies say that it doesn't even exist at all. This dichotomy exists between two opposing forces for one reason, and that one reason is the fact that they are both wrong. The UFO enthusiast and our space agencies are two sides of the same coin. One is a believer, and the other needs proof. The UFO enthusiast brings pictures that shows it traveling in our skies, and yet organizations like NASA show us proof that it is nothing more than space debris. This game of belief and debunking belief has been going on for decades. However, this argument will come to an abrupt end, and a knowledge above knowledge will completely extinguish our beliefs and bring wisdom to our earthly minds. For there is a knowledge that is above man, both believer and disbeliever alike, and this knowledge is so powerful that once revealed, it will remove all doubt and all speculation. It is a God knowledge that is given to man and the earth, and sadly, it is given to humanity for only one reason, and that is because it is the end of the earth. Our planet is suffering and dying, and the knowledge that comes is to serve only one purpose: to save as many as we can. This knowledge has not come to save our earth, and instead, this knowledge comes forth and unto all of us to save the next human beings that will come to this planet after we are all gone. This film is not created to debate whether the Black Knight satellite exists or not, and instead, this film is created to end the debate completely. The knowledge that comes forth is so beyond man that it is astounding to the intellect, and thus makes man susceptible to a terrible disease, a disease called cognitive dissonance, a disease that afflicts the brain, a brain that is introduced to a knowledge that is more powerful than what the brain believes is possible. The symptoms of this disease is to recoil and scoff at what is a known fact. Be forewarned, as this knowledge will do just that. And once you hear it, once you understand it, everything ends. This film will raise the UFO enthusiast and the government space agency to a place where there is no longer any doubt. The reason that this is so important is because we must learn the truth of all things, and we must learn it quickly, because we are running out of time. Our understanding of this alien satellite began in 1899, when scientist Nikola Tesla intercepted a strange signal from space. This strange signal would later be identified as a satellite. And what made this signal so strange is the fact that the satellite hadn't been invented yet. Many of today's doubters dismiss Tesla's observations as intercepting natural space noise. And this unintelligent repose proves that the doubter is always with us. Nevertheless, in this part of our human evolution, we must understand that we don't have much time left, and therefore waste no time on a doubter. Nikola Tesla intercepted a strange signal, and this signal would later be identified as a satellite signal. This satellite signal was most active during the 1920s and the 1930s, and these 2 decades will provide our world with the greatest and most undeniable proof ever known. In a world of skeptics and doubters, how do we prove that this alien satellite exists? The first step is to understand the purpose of a satellite. A satellite is sent into orbit around our Earth to do only one thing: to communicate. It hovers above our world, allowing the transmission of visual and audio communication data to be transmitted to a designated party. A satellite is primarily invisible to the average human being, and to those who see it, it looks like a star. This cloak of invisibility is to serve a purpose, a stealthy and clandestine purpose. A satellite is also used for observation and spying on the lives of men and women and their nations. A position above the Earth allows one to see the entire Earth, and also to know the entire Earth, and to know it better than any human being walking upon it. This alien eye view of our world is not as new as we would like to think, and it is, in fact, actually ancient. We now know that everything that we have ever been taught about our ancient past is untrue. We now know that the great nation of Egypt was a technological nation, and we also now know even our prehistoric forefathers were likewise also technological masterminds. A point that surely can no longer be challenged, at least intelligently challenged. The Egyptians hid its knowledge in plain sight, knowing that one day one of us will be born who can understand it. The pyramid is the symbol of the sun, and in every hieroglyphic, a symbol of the heavens is always one of a circle. A square is how you enter the cosmos, and the circle is how you travel within it. Any ancient symbol that has a circular tail indicates that it is an object in the cosmos, and it travels in a circular fashion. Astoundingly, this symbol is a perfection of knowledge because it is found on the eye of God. This Egyptian symbol is the eye of God, and it is called the Eye of Ra, the sun god. A word to the wise: breathe and stay calm, for we are now walking on holy ground. A single eye, an Egyptian symbol that represents God's heavenly and all-seeing authority. An eye that sees all and knows all, and yet our clue is found in what creates this eye. We know that it is an eye, but what eye has 2 posts beneath it? None, which means that this is a clue. An eye with a strong post and another post that has a circular tail means that this eye travels in the cosmos with a rotating orientation. It is the eye of God, and it rests in the cosmos to watch mankind. However, what eye have you ever seen that travels and moves in a circular fashion? Children of Earth, open your eyes, open your minds, for the eye that sees all of the heavens and of the earth is actually a satellite. It sees all and knows all. We call it the eye in the sky, and the ancient called it the eye of God. It has posts leading from its eye, and it rotates as it traverses the heavens. It is the all-seeing eye of the heavens and the earth, and it is also a communication device. It allows one to see ecological disasters and weather changes well before the land dwellers do. A satellite knows when an island nation will be wiped away by a typhoon, and it will also know when the floodwaters will claim a nation. A satellite is an eye, and it allows one to see the earth from God's perspective. It is the eye of eyes, and it is also the eye of the storm. A knowledge that creates a powerful Category 5 hurricane in the mind. For what comes will take all of our lives. A satellite sees the earth differently from you and I, and its perspective is easily identifiable. Notice these satellite images, and notice how the images bend and stretch. This happens due to the sun's light as it hits the earth from various angles. And now look again. These are not satellite photos. These are actually cave paintings, and they are identical to satellite images because these cave paintings are actually ancient satellite images. Human beings have not the vantage point to reproduce these images with the human eye. These images can only come from the eye in the sky, the eye of God, the eye of a satellite. This is satellite imagery of mountainous terrain, and yet it isn't. There are 20,000-year-old cave paintings which are created to produce a satellite view of terrain. The question becomes, how did they create these images without a satellite? The answer is, they didn't. The Black Knight satellite is said to be more than 13,000 years old. But these cave paintings, which date back more than 50,000 years, clearly show us that a satellite has been in our skies for much, much longer. To the ancients, this alien satellite was seen as a bright star in the night sky. It foretold the birth of nations, the rise of kings, and also the birth of Christs. Its existence has been screaming and yelling to us from the annals of our dark history, and saying to us, look, closer, understand. A message that is so important that even our lords and gods sit before us, staring at us while giving us clues about our end. A satellite is conspicuously found throughout all of our human history, and yet only a few will take heed. Only a few will look closer and see what the holy ones are saying to us. In 1595, a mystery of mysteries has confounded the world, and the absence of knowledge has empowered this religious relic to be lifted to a place of never-ending wonder. What is it? What does it mean? What is its message? Why is it painted? What are we missing? Its painter is named Ventura the Arcangelo Salimbeni, and his beautifully painted vision of heaven is called The Glorification of the Eucharist. However, this strange globe and its antenna has fueled speculation and consternation for nearly 500 years. And although the world knows this painting better than we know ourselves, it still remains one of the greatest mysteries of all time. The world teaches that this holy painting of Jesus and God the Father is to show us their power over our earth. This again is an example of oral tradition. This is an oral tradition that did not survive. No matter our faith and no matter our religion, in the end, There is no escaping the truth, and the truth will always lead us back to Egypt. Look closer and let go of what you've been taught. This is not a globe with an antenna, and instead, it is an ancient satellite. A painting created nearly 500 years before we would even invent one. And yet, when we did create one, unbelievably, it looked like this. The first satellite created by man to successfully orbit this world was the Russian satellite called Sputnik. A satellite has the power to be the eye of God, and it can see all and know all. But it is the purpose of this satellite that is the most important part of this fresco. Why would the ancients lead us to the knowledge of the satellite? The reason is because an alien satellite always precedes the fall of Earth. When a satellite is seen in the heavens, it foretells the ending of man's civilization on this planet. This fresco tells us of a satellite, and it's telling us that God is giving us this information. And how this information is being given is between each of their fingers. We believe that these two steely rods are actually antennae, and we have dismissed it as nothing more than a part of a satellite. However, this is where we lack knowledge. The ancients were more intelligent than we are. Therefore, every message, every painting, and every carving is layered with interdimensional hieroglyphics, which means there are multiple stories, multiple information in multiple dimensions. If you free your mind, you will see all things. We have made the leap to believe that these are antennae. But then again, there is another layer that we have not seen. Look at how the God and the God's Son are holding these antennae. Notice their fingers. They are each holding them delicately and purposefully, as though one would hold a pencil, a pen, a writing instrument of some kind. This is a clue that is telling us that this holy knowledge can only be uncovered by a written word. A source of knowledge that is locked somewhere in the ancient world. And because these two gods are holding these two writing instruments, it means that we are looking for something that is found in a holy word or a holy knowledge. No matter our beliefs or our prejudices, the holiest place on this earth is Egypt. It is the place of Egypt where we find this holy knowledge, and it is in Egypt where this 500-year-old mystery ends. Ancient Egypt and ancient Christianity are seen to be at war in this world. However, in the holiest place on earth, ancient Egypt and ancient Christianity are not at war at all. And in fact, they have crossed paths to create our salvation. It is two opposing religions coming together for one purpose: to save humanity. The holy knowledge of this Italian fresco is unbelievably found here, the Great Pyramid of Egypt. It is a perfection of architecture that many believe was created by the sons of God. The pyramid represents the sun, and viewing it from above tells us that it is also perfectly aligned, due north, and it has 8 cardinal points built within it for direction. Nevertheless, this holy knowledge of the sun is useless without this. This is one of the first pictures of Jesus ever made. Although the faithful see Jesus, the Lord, the wise see the symbol behind him, the symbol of the cross. In the ancient world, Jesus was seen as the Son of God. But then again, the cross behind him is what gave him his authority. Because in the ancient world, the crossed circle actually means God the Father, God the Creator. This is why both of these figures are found in this painting. One is the Son, the other is God the Father. God is with the Son, and the Son is with God. A cross and a pyramid linked together. The reason that this is so important is because when you place a cross upon the pyramid, you will get a message. And the message is directions. The pyramid has 8 cardinal points of direction, and the pyramid represents the sun. And when the cross is placed upon the sun monument, it gives us navigational directions. And when it is turned, it leads us to only one place: the Stargate. Look again at this fresco. You see God, and you see his Son. But then, look at God closer. Notice his halo isn't a halo. It is a pyramid. A great pyramid. And now look at his Son, Jesus. He no longer has a halo either. Look closely. It's a cross. When you put these two together, Father and Son, there is a message. And it is holy, and holier than holy. And it leads us to look again at this strange globe. Still your hearts, children of men, for what you are seeing is not a globe. It's not earth. It's our salvation. Because what you're seeing isn't a sphere at all. It's actually a hole. And that tiny light is the sun. And although we see the sun shining within our skies, always know a sun isn't a planet. It's more than a star. It's a hole in space. And remember, a hole with 3 dimensions looks like a sphere. Children of men, this is the Stargate. We know that this is the sun, and we know that this is the cosmos. And yet there is one more thing we must not forget. Although the world teaches that the bird is the symbol of the Holy Spirit, it isn't. The Great Pyramid of Egypt tells us the pyramid is made for the house of God, and behind the head of God is the pyramid. The house of God, according to the Egyptians, is found in the constellation of Triangulum, and this knowledge will explain why this large bird is above God and his Son. Everything in this painting represents the cosmos, and that which we believe to be a dove is actually a celestial marker to ensure we reach our destination. For nearly 500 years, we've all been told that it is the symbol of the Holy Spirit, and sadly, it is not. It hovers above the house of God because this is actually the constellation of Cygnus. Yes, this is more than a painting. It is more than a fresco. Children of earth, This is a map. If you unfurl this constellation map, you will see the constellation of Cygnus, the bird hovering above the house of God, a house that is found in the Triangulum constellation. It is overpowering to the mind and overpowering to the soul, and yet there is one more piece of this puzzle that we have yet to see. Look at this part of the sphere. This is the entryway into the cosmos. It leads us to the hallowed of hallows, for the opening will take us to the house of God. Bless your hearts and bless your minds. For nearly 500 years, none of us on earth were worthy enough to be given this knowledge. It is a knowledge that is above knowledge, a knowledge that the ancients called the All. It is a God knowledge that only the holiest could receive, and today we receive it, and we can only hope that we will be worthy of it. Sadly, once we become wise enough to understand this knowledge, it means something that will give us fear. It means it is time to leave the earth. Look again. These gods in our skies are showing us something very holy. Their eyes. Because even in the ancient world, the eye of God is a satellite. We must cleanse our mind of our human history and know that there is a greater story and a holy history that is more powerful than even our knowledge of God. These great misunderstood paintings and ancient stones from our past are crying, trying, and dying for us. They sing a grand and holy song to the new children of this earth, a stubborn children who refuse to hear them, and also who refuse to accept them as equals. Within every prehistoric painting and every ancient stone and within every ancient carving is a glorious story and a powerful wisdom that is too good for us. Their message is so old, so broken, and so tired that there is barely any life left in them. Their children are us, arrogant and conceited, and we know not that these structures were created to sing us a song that will save us. You won't understand these carvings and these stones until you are able to accept the reality that everything you think and everything you have been taught about our past is wrong. You won't be able to understand these carvings and these stones until you are able to accept the reality that everything you think and everything you have been taught about our past is wrong. Today our world is covered with not one or two satellites, and instead there are hundreds. They swarm across every inch of our world, and their primary function is to allow communication and to bridge one end of the earth to another. Without them, we would be instantly cut off from the continents, and our casual conversations with our loved ones in distant lands would end. Then again, why would an alien race place a communication satellite around our world? What would be the motivation? And what could this mean? The answer is GMOs. Today our world is slowly being saturated with a creation called GMOs. It stands for Genetically Modified Organisms. A scientific creation that alters the DNA composition of the foods we eat, such as grains, fruits, and vegetables. And yet they can also be used to alter animal DNA, which also becomes the food we eat. Aliens have also created GMOs, and unbelievably, they are found on this earth, and they are found in every nation. A GMO is thought to be a near copy of a natural organism that is found to be a natural part of our world. However, the DNA manipulation of these organisms prove that there is nothing natural about it, and yet it is a path that we must walk, for it will lead us to accept a horrifying truth. The Black Knight satellite was discovered in 1899, and everyone doubted its validity because we had no idea what a satellite was or what one would be used for. This strange alien signal became even more powerful during the 1920s and the 1930s. And the question that should arise in the mind of every human being is, what was happening on our Earth during this period? And who were they contacting? Gather yourselves and still your hearts, for what is to come is the end of all doubt. The reason an alien satellite signal was prevalent throughout the 1920s and the 1930s is because a new form of alien GMO was being uncovered. Only we had no idea what an alien GMO would actually look like. A satellite provides communication, and in 1928, an alien signal was received, and an alien GMO was uncovered. What you are about to see is a film made in 1928, a film that would have no relevance in our world were it not for a satellite. Look closer. Closer. This is a cell phone. And that which we believe to be a woman is actually a GMO, a genetically modified organism in the appearance of a human being. Like grain, wheat, fruits, and vegetables, we also can be genetically modified and modified to serve an alien purpose. This film is recorded 10 years later in 1938. And notice an alien GMO. Look among the crowd. Closer. This too is a GMO, and this is also a cell phone. The reason the Black Knight satellite was so active during the 1920s and 1930s was because they were communicating with their human counterpart on this earth. Human, and yet they are genetically modified, and they walk, talk, and live among us. And they are also indistinguishable from human beings. The unenlightened of our world will always ask, if these alien beings are so intelligent, why don't they just show themselves? Why don't they just come down here, reveal themselves, and just speak to us? These films prove how superior they are to us, because they are doing just that. And even more, they are guiding our world, and guiding it to an inevitable end. They can walk among us and talk in plain sight, and no one would ever know who they are or what they are doing. It is a powerful reality that we must confront, and we must also accept it. Because if we don't, there won't be an earth to come back to. A cell phone is linked to a satellite, and a satellite provides communication. And knowing this and understanding it will take us into the great beyond and the deepest part of the cosmos. This small kernel of knowledge actually opens the expanse of the cosmos, because it opens our minds, And once we see what is possible, we then can achieve it. On the other hand, we cannot leap ahead until we understand where we come from. And once we understand this, we will understand our greatest human question: the purpose of life. 10,000 years ago, the Egyptians were leaving us clues. And 5,000 years ago, the Sumerians and Babylonians did the same. They wrote, they painted, they chiseled, and they did everything they could to help us. Each prehistoric and ancient civilization tirelessly devoted their lives to leaving us clues in paint, in metal, and in rock. They did this in hopes that one of us would be born who could actually understand it. Unfortunately, all of these peoples and their nations who tirelessly gave their lives all died with hope. A hope that we would become wise, and wise enough to change our fate. These are the last great teachers that we had on this earth, and knowing them is more important than anything else on this planet. This is Easter Island, and this is the land of the Mayans. These two nations are linked together, and they are bound by a covenant of wisdom. Before we tell this tale, know one uncompromising truth. No matter what you've heard or what you've been taught, know this one thing: oral tradition does not survive. The surviving Hopi Indian will recite an oral history to explain what these carvings mean. And sadly, they couldn't be further from the truth. The Aborigine will tell you through their oral tradition that these are ancient travelers from the skies, which they clearly are not. The Polynesians and the descendant of the Rapa Nui people will tell us many tales handed down from their fathers of the Moai and their meaning. And unfortunately, they are all completely wrong. This is not meant to be disparaging and degrading in any way, and instead it is meant to enlighten the living to one simple truth: oral tradition will never survive. Why? Because every human being who survives the end and knows the truth is subsequently taken from this earth. Every man, woman, or child who sees what happens in the end, suddenly they vanish without a trace. What is left is mankind trying to make sense of what happened. And without any explanation or knowledge, they began creating a flawed and feeble oral history. A history that never was. The Moai will tell us a story that no Polynesian has ever heard. They will tell the story of the Great Flood, a flood that destroyed the world. However, look closer at these majestic beings, and you'll see an ancient story that has not been spoken on this planet for more than 10,000 years. The Moai stand tall, and yet some are taller, and others wore a strange hat or crown of authority. We know it is a crown of authority because all ancient headdress is a symbol of authority. From the golden crowns of Egypt to the humble plumage of feathers on the heads of the North American Indian, headdress was always worn by those who would lead a people and a nation. And yet, it is more than a symbol of authority. It is more than royalty. For there is something far more important than these, and knowing it will completely undo our human history. Headdress is the sign of a leader. But there is something else. Every ancient leader, teacher, and god king of our history have strange and elongated ears. In every culture throughout the world, each leader had two things in common: headdress and also strange and elongated ears. No matter what part of the earth you find, all ancients had elongated ears. Understanding this query will undo all that has been done, and it will also reveal a future that you can't imagine. The Moai who stand in this place are not like these Moai that you find scattered and buried in the ruins. When the floodwaters came, the world was destroyed, and the bodies of these megaton monstrosities were swallowed up by the sea. And thousands of years later, we see their corpses littering the countryside, with none to bury them. Nevertheless, look closely and notice there is a difference between these corpses who were devoured by the sea and these who stand with their backs to the sea. Look closer, and you will see that their ears are not just elongated, but that there is something in them. These ears appear to be longer than normal because there is something connected to them. This apparatus that is inserted into the ear is actually mechanical. It is a device that once inserted into the ear gives its user information. The Moai stand in the time of the flood, and yet they stand with their backs against the ocean and against the flood, for they knew something the others did not. And when the floodwaters came and wiped away the world, these with their backs to the sea were untouched. All the Moai which had not this device were murdered, but these who had this device lived. This device is inserted within the ear, and it coincides with the end of the world. Which brings us to the last, greatest, and most technological peoples on the earth, the Mayans. They are known for their wisdom, their masonry, and their uncanny ability to be more precise than we are at nearly everything. They are the one peoples who came before us that have us continually scratching our heads in amazement. They are a people who had supreme intelligence, and so much so that nearly every calendar and every star chart or cosmic alignment that they created is more accurate than anything we have today, and that's including what we can do with a computer. They were an all-knowing people who left this earth and left us knowing nothing. Their works are like all the other great ancient nations, and that is, celestial. They were obsessive about the cosmos and the cycles of life. However, there is a secret that they share with all other great nations, and that is headdress. The Mayans are North American, and they too wore a feathered crown. Like the American Indian and all ancient indigenous peoples, feathered headdress was worn as a sign of power, authority, and kingship. When approaching an ancient village, you will always know who is in charge by the headdress. The Mayans also shared this feathered custom, but the reason that this is the rule instead of an exception is earth-shattering. In the ancient world, any use of a feather, whether in art or hieroglyphic, always symbolized wisdom and flight. The feathered wings of a bird are found upon a serpent, planets, insects, and human beings. And each of these depictions are to illustrate the fact that each of these subjects could fly. Nevertheless, When you find a man with a crown of feathers covering every inch of his head instead of his body, that is a clue. Wings on the human head means that only the head could fly, and not the body. To understand this great wisdom, all one has to do is understand ancient culture and that of the indigenous peoples of the world. The leader of the people, or chief of the people, is always found with a full braid of feathers covering his head. And these feathers symbolize the fact that this leader had the ability that no other tribesman had. And that is, he could talk to the sky god. The feathers adorn the head because only the head can fly, and only his head can soar into the heavens. And in the heavens of heavens, there is the voice of the sky god. The Mayans, who were superior to us in every way, also received their great knowledge from the sky god. This knowledge has been hidden from mankind for over 1,000 years, and yet it hides in plain sight. The reason we are unable to unlock this powerful and holy knowledge is because we are arrogant. We believe we are better than anything that came before us. And sadly, this is why we are the slowest learners ever to walk on this earth. Gather yourselves and hold your hearts, for what comes next is the end. This is the Mayan king in full feathered regalia. And now, this is the Mayan king without his headdress. This is Bluetooth. It is a technologically advanced form of communication that is exactly what we have today. And it is also a form of communication that requires a satellite, a black night satellite. It has been watching our world for over 50,000 years. It has the ability to clothe itself in dark matter, which allows itself to be seen in 1 minute and then completely invisible in the next. This alien satellite has seen more civilizations of man on this earth than we know of, and it presides over the life of the earth and also the death of our flesh. Before the cognitive dissonance takes hold of your mind, and before your own thoughts begin to say, "This is impossible. This couldn't possibly be true," look again at this Mayan king. He is walking, and he is alone. And then again, look at his lips. He is clearly speaking. And in his ear is who he is speaking to. The appearance of this alien satellite coincides with the destruction of planet Earth. If we look back throughout human history, we will understand what these strange paintings mean. They are messages, they are cries, and they are tears. And they all have one thing in common. They all show us a view of the cosmos that only a satellite can provide. The appearance of this alien satellite in our skies means that our world is coming to an end. A satellite is connected to every ancient and prehistoric people who have ever lived, and yet it is the last message they ever send. And then their world goes silent, and their breath ends. There is a reason the ancients were obsessive about the stars and of the cosmos. There is a reason they looked deep into the deepest parts of space. There is a reason they took a collective understanding of every star and charted it in our galaxy. There is a reason they looked deeper into the cosmos than any of us could ever imagine. And there is a reason why their measurements and their calculations are so precise. And the reason is they were scared. The rise and fall of Earth is in a cycle. It is a calendar. It is a clockwork. And our end always comes from the sky. The ancients knew to keep close eyes on the stars, a close eye on the cosmos, the heavens, the bodies that swirl around our planet. They were meticulous. They were never ending and never failing, because every ancient king knows a very horrible secret, and that is there's something out there waiting for us, and it ain't no man. There is so much I have to tell you. But I don't